Mark.
On Entrepreneurs Unlimited radio show, we feature stories of entrepreneurial ventures. And sometimes they're ventures where most people would never have thought of them before. And this is true with our first guest. He has a team that buys trailer parks, he improves them, and he develops quality, affordable housing opportunities that did not exist prior to that investment. We are here today with Eli Weiner, founder of the Manufactured Home Communities and the Cascade Management Company. How you doing today?
Very good.
Good. Thanks for coming down, Eli. I really appreciate it. Now, we met through my good friend Jason Hartman at 5 Star Bank. Now, can you give us an overview of your business?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to tell you that 5 Star Bank's been a fantastic partner of ours and a great relationship with Jason. We do a lot of business with them. And so basically, I'm actually co-founder with my business partner, John McDougall, and it's Cascade Corporate Management. We own and operate 42 mobile home and RV parks. And basically started out as mobile home dealers, selling homes in other people's parks, and saw an opportunity to buy our first park in kind of a rural town with about 2,500 people.
Oh, wow.
Outside of Oroville, and we're able to go in there and make some big changes and make it a nice all-age community and double, triple the value, refinance, and go do the next one. So.
Wow, that's exciting. So you go in, buy the mobile home park, gussy it up, and then are able to turn that into some residual income?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of opportunity with, there's a lot of mom and pops that own the smaller properties. So, there's not quite the professionalism and there's not a whole lot of technology being used. So there's just a combination of things that in this real estate asset class, it gives you a lot of opportunity.
You did 10 deals last year, and this year you're on track to do 13. What's the secret to the growth?
Earlier you were talking about the whole David and Goliath thing, and I thought that was kind of interesting because, I think that you need to be challenged. And a while back, maybe when we had 13 or 15 properties, that we were challenged. I was challenged by a friend who was an old Stanford wrestler friend of mine, and his goal was to basically bring some park owners together, some larger guys, and basically compete with the big guys. And I said, well, I'm going to see if I can compete with you. And he kind of chuckled and said, I don't think that you could even get the company to $30 million in revenue. And that was probably about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
So we're well over halfway there now.
Nice.
So, but I think that you need guys out there that are challenging you, that are naysayers, basically.
Yes.
And so you need your Goliath. And
is that where you get your motivation? Is the Goliaths out there?
Yeah, I think so. But you also need that guy saying you can't take him too.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
How you going to take that guy down?
Yeah.
So and then you just do it. You just get busy doing it.
Now, you and I had talked earlier. You mentioned the Carlyle Group. I'm partners with the Carlyle Group in a group of security companies in Texas, so I'm familiar with the size. They're one of the largest private equity companies in the world. And you mentioned that the Carlyle Group had come in and started buying up mobile home parks. They're a Goliath, right?
They just did 2 big deals. They did a deal in Pacifica that I looked at years ago when, back when I couldn't have done the deal anyway. And then they just did a deal in Sunnyvale, I think $180 million deal on a little over 700 spaces. So
how do you take on the Goliaths? Well, how do you take on the Carlyle Group?
You don't go for what they're going for, because they do these other companies. They're going to move slower, and they aren't going to be able to solve all the problems that you can solve. So you're looking stuff with a little bit of hair on it. You're looking things, for stuff with problems.
Okay.
And you need to go in there and, even as our company is growing, we have to kind of fine tune it and always kind of changing course to keep it running like a fast, well-moving, small operations so that we can go in there and solve these problems fast. And I think that, the big companies, they're acting more like a bank. So they're going in there, they're borrowing at 2.6%, and they're buying things for, 4 to 5 caps.
Right.
And
4 or 5% return.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a different game. So we are flying under the radar a little bit, and we're playing a different game. We basically are playing the game we want to play, and we're finding great success doing it.
Well, you use the term hair and problem. What do you run into when you buy a mobile home park? What's the grossest thing you've ever ran into?
Well, there's some abandoned homes that you end up, either remodeling or just yanking them out of the park and then bringing new homes in. And there's some pretty nasty stuff, and a lot of people.
Like what?
Well, we had a regional manager, a fantastic lady. Charlie Haynes actually passed away not too long ago, and she had these stories. She had a park that she managed where the person passed away, and they actually
Not sounding good at this point.
No, they went into their house and they actually found body parts in the house.
Oh my goodness!
So
okay,
yeah.
Well, yeah, that's it's one of so the Carlisle Group doesn't want to get mixed in with the old body parts and stuff. That's
No.
good. You guys are willing to go after those things. Now you have a contrarian viewpoint. We talked earlier about your investment strategy of focus versus diversification, which for a lot of people that's contrarian view. Tell us what you were thinking.
Well, that's kind of exactly right. So everyone's taught to diversify, and if you want to make sure that you don't lose your money and you want to make sure that you don't ever make any money, then you got to diversify. If the people that you meet that are the most successful people that have really made it, and look at how they made it, not after they made it, what they did, because then you have a bunch of people telling them to diversify because they got a bunch of extra money. So the people, getting to that success, you got to put all your eggs in one basket, and you got to focus. And then the other thing is you can't have a backup plan. If you want a backup plan, that backup plan has to be the backup plan for what you're trying to do, not if this doesn't work out.
Aha.
That's just gonna it's almost guaranteed it's not gonna work. So it's got to work, and if it there can't be another choice. There
is no plan B.
Yeah.
Unless it's inside your business, inside your venture.
Plan B is just go out and do it. It's the way I see it is it's if you want to make a lot of money or be really successful, it's actually really easy. All you have to do is work really, really hard.
Okay, we're going to take that quote and write it down because that's very true, and I think it's something we often lose sight of, that there's some kind of lucky, magical way that guys like David take down Goliath, but in reality, they attack from a different direction, and they work really, really hard. Now, you were a tennis player at UC Davis, and you mentioned something, another contrarian viewpoint. You said you had an allergy to open up school books, and I thought that was interesting. You're not against school, but that you had reservations that it was for everybody.
Well, I'm all for learning. I read a lot. I read a lot of biographies. I read a lot of autobiographies. I want to learn what the guys that are out there, what the guys that are winning. I want to see how they're doing it. I don't like the gurus so much. The guys that are making their money selling their books, but the real successful people, I want to see how they did it, especially because I'm a real estate guy, so I'll make sure I'll get those. But the textbooks in school and what they're learning, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think that there's certain classes that if people were taught, how to budget their money and how money works and accounting and, writing skills. I mean, I don't know how many people that, that you interview that, just aren't good writers. So
focus on the basics, and that's how you build your business. Focus, I think, is a term that you used repeatedly and think outside the box. You don't have to do it the way other people are doing it. And I think the one thing that you said, the best way to learn is from real world guys who have been there, done that, and you're doing that, and you are one of those guys. I want to thank you, Eli, for sharing your story, your philosophy here on Entrepreneurs Unlimited. Coming up after the break, we will meet Andy Beal. I did an interview with Andy Beal, the founder of Max Preps, and we heard his story about building a successful business, and he's known as America's source for high school sports, and he eventually sold to CBS Sports. He is a true David, as in the David and Goliath story. You're listening to Entrepreneurs Unlimited on Sports 1140 KHTK, streaming live, podcast, and YouTube at haneybiz.com.
Once again, here's Mark.
David and Goliath, the story of the little guy facing the big guy, the disadvantaged guy facing the guy with all the advantages. Wow, that can be a scary situation, right, Tom?
Absolutely.
Now, is it okay to limp up to a big fight and then suddenly punch the guy in the throat?
Well,
Is that okay?
That sounds,
is that legal?
That sounds
I don't know.
strategic to me.
Figuratively speaking, as entrepreneurs, as the little guys, you got to figure out a way to find your advantage. And Eli, he's facing... in his manufactured home parks. He's facing Blackstone and Carlyle and the big private equity groups, and Andy Beal facing the big media giants of this world. How do these guys approach that? I think was what we heard today. How small guys have faced the big guys and found a way to come away with some success. And I think it was really cool to hear Eli talk about sometimes you just have to outwork everybody.
I love that. I thought that was great.
Really cool. Well, there's a local story here that about a basketball coach that you may or may not have heard before, but I'm going to share it with you. And it's, in my mind, a David and Goliath story. It's about this basketball coach who had never coached basketball before, right? And it's his first year, and the girls is a competitive girls team, and they needed a high school basketball coach. And so they turned to this high-tech executive and said, hey, will you coach the team? And he had never played basketball before, and he had never coached basketball before. So what does he do? He calls the first day of practice, and he looks around at his team, and what does he have? He has a bunch of smaller girls with some amount of athleticism, but he refers to them as these little blonde girls, right? So that's the team he's got. So what's he got? He's got these girls, and he's got no experience, and the girls have limited height and limited athleticism. So he, in some ways, he's kind of like the David. So what do you do? So what he did was he recruited two coaches. One was his daughter, who had played high-level basketball, and the other was Roger Craig, who you know as a former 49er. And Roger was the speed and athletics coach, and his daughter obviously knew basketball. But as they faced this challenge of how to win against these competitive teams, he figured, you know what? I better figure out a different way to attack, and I got to attack from a different direction. So he looked at two of the rules that exist in basketball. One is the 5-second rule, right? It takes 5 seconds. If you don't inbound the basketball in less than 5 seconds, then it's a turnover, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then the other one was the 10-second rule. If you don't get the ball across half-court line within 10 seconds, then it's a turnover.
Again, it's a turnover.
And where most teams don't focus a lot on defending the inbound or even trying to get the ball in bounds. Normally in basketball, you score a basket and you run back down, you retreat at that, and then you play defense once you get back underneath your side of the basket. Well, this particular coach said, you know what? We aren't the tallest in the world. We're not the best basketball players in the world. We're going to focus on what we're good at. We're pretty quick. So here's what they did. They spent all of their practice time focusing on defending the inbound. They attacked like nobody's business. They defended like nobody's business. And they full court pressed the entire game long. And this was something that their opponents never, ever expected. And that crazy pressure, that intense focus on areas where most teams wouldn't focus, led them all the way to the Nationals. And as you think about that story, you think about a little bit about David and Goliath. How did these little blonde girls attack from a different direction so consistently? And this particular coach got the buy-in of his entire team to attack together, to swarm together and attack in a different direction. And some of you may know who I'm talking about. This is a guy that the coach of this team is a guy that's involved with the Sacramento Kings. He's actually the owner of the Sacramento Kings. You're kidding. Vivek Ranadive. Yes. He is that girls' basketball coach. He is that David in the David and Goliath. Those little blonde girls are his girls, and they found a way to take the team all the way to nationals. And now he's one of our Sacramento Kings.
I'll be darned.
So very interesting story. So as we think about our entrepreneurial ventures, as we think about our challenges in our life, as we think about the Goliaths that we all face every day, what I would submit to you is that maybe we need to think a little bit differently. We need to think a little bit more like David. If we can bring the slingshot, if we can bring the sling, we got to come and sling it. And what I would challenge everyone to do, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're past that time in your life, today is a day that celebrates small business. It's Small Business Saturday. So what I would ask of you is consider shopping small today. Consider helping out those small businesses. You know what? They provide a better product and service anyway, don't they?
Absolutely.
I mean, come on, shop small. And if you're going to go out and get something to eat, maybe you ought to dine small, right? The small restaurants, and they provide better food and better service anyway. And if you're an entrepreneur, right, if you have a small business, what I would say to you as entrepreneurs, as one of you guys, as underdogs, we should think big. We should dream big, but we should play small. We should act small. We should think differently, and we should attack from a different direction. So I don't know what the takeaways from today are, Tom, but as you think about how small business guys face their giants, I mean, what were your takeaways today? Did you come away with anything?
Well, I was entertained by the fact that Mr. Weiner had mentioned the fact that he when it came right down to it, he just said, you just have to work hard. He also said that being successful and making money was easy, which I'm not too sure that I agree with because it takes an incredible amount of effort in surrounding yourself with the right people. But I think hard work and dedication does bring its rewards. I'm kind of curious as to, and I know we don't have a lot of time here, but at the same time, I bet you being in business on so many different levels and starting and creating businesses and selling. Do you have a quick Goliath and David story?
The one story of a company that I had, which is now merged with another company and sold a few more times, and it's owned by one of the Goliaths now. But when we were starting out, we definitely faced that David and Goliath story, and there was one big Goliath in our industry. And should I mention their name?
Why not?
It rhymes with Moneywell. Anyway, they were the big Goliath in our industry, and you know what? They had branches all over the U.S., and we had to figure out a way to attack differently. So when we decided to open up a branch in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we just set a desk and a phone and a computer out in an inside centralized sales room so we could attack with a lower overhead model. And so we had a national company with not hundreds of branches, we had hundreds of desks.
But you had to look outside convention in order to go after that Goliath.
There's no question. If we tried to stack up with Goliath in the same way that he fought with all the armor and all the extra stuff, we couldn't have fought him toe-to-toe.
Right.
We had to fight him scrappy. We had to focus on where we were good at, which in our case was IP video network security, and where they were general broadline security distributors. We had a focus. We could do it cheaper. we could do it more effectively. And eventually, we did pull down Honeywell's panties and give them a little spanking. And it was quite gratifying. Now, I'm in a different security business, and Honeywell's a great friend of ours. We love Honeywell.
Right.
They're a supplier to us, and they're great friends. So it's funny how the times, they be changing.
Right.
But we do what we can to scrap. I never really had a personal beef with Honeywell, but they were the Goliath. And we did find a way. We did find a way to fight from a different direction, and in our own small way, we came up with a victory.
Absolutely.
And so I would say again, as we wrap up today's show on Small Business Saturday, just God bless all of you that have been underestimated. That have been the Davids, and you've been. People thought you couldn't do it. You came out of nowhere, like Vivek and his little blonde girls, like Andy, right? Like Eli, like I tried to do a little bit. God bless all of you that have shown the courage to face your giants, and God bless those fighting men and women who protect this great nation and truly face the enemies and make free enterprise possible for the rest of us.
Amen.
Never above you, never below you, always by your side.